Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think we are going to get ready to start. Just a quick reminder, please make sure you're on mute. That way we can hear all of our speakers. I want to start by welcoming everybody to our brown bag lunch, Pro Bono in a Virtual Age, a conversation with Kind, Legal Aid Society, and Bread for the City. Now, we all know that 2020 and the pandemic forced many of us to stop our normal, socially distance, and make major changes in both our work and life. It was a devastating year and continues to present major challenges for businesses and individuals. Today, we're here to reflect on how pro bono is still possible in a virtual and socially distant world. The needs of the disenfranchised continue to exist and likely have been exacerbated due to the pandemic. We have an incredible list of speakers today, including the DC Superior Court Justice McLean and representatives from private firms and organizations to discuss the influence of a pro bono attorney. To begin, I first want to introduce you all to Judge McLean, who is providing the opening remarks for the event. Judge McLean currently sits on the Domestic Relations Branch calendar and chairs a committee at the court focusing on pro bono and affordable counsel. Prior to joining the court, she served as the partner in charge of pro bono and public service at the law firm of Jones Day. Judge McLean.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me here today, because I welcome this opportunity and any opportunity to talk with potential pro bono lawyers. It's wonderful that you're considering giving your time in that way. As was mentioned, I'm in the Domestic Relations Branch, and I'll focus most of my comments on that, since I know that is what this training is focused on as well. About 80% of our litigants in the Domestic Relations Branch are pro se. And sometimes that's not a problem because the issues are not complex. Sometimes it is a very big problem, both for the litigants who don't understand how to come to court and provide the information that's relevant to the court making decisions, and also to the court, because we don't have a way to get the information absent someone bringing it to us. So each and every time I see a lawyer from a legal services organization or a pro bono attorney, I'm so grateful for their participation. And sometimes I'm able to even request a lawyer, a guardian ad litem in custody cases. And I often do that when neither of the parties have attorneys and it's unclear what would be best for the child. And I know when there are pro bono attorneys that come to court that they are likely practicing outside the area of their expertise, which I know from personal experience can be very daunting. I remember my very first adoption case, and I did not do well, but I kept coming back, and I learned over time. And not only did I get the opportunity to make a big difference in the lives of a number of children, but I improved my own individual skills. And one of the many things that our new court committee on pro bono is doing is we're going to set up some trainings for judges to make sure that everybody has a firm understanding of how to be open and receptive to pro bono attorneys in the courtroom, and understanding that people might be experiencing outside of their practice areas. So I certainly wouldn't want that to be a deterrent for anybody who's thinking about doing pro bono work. We are not coming with it from the perspective that you're an expert in this field. Any assistance that you can provide will be appreciated. And you should do your best to prepare and know that the value that you're going to be adding. During the pandemic, a number of things have changed. Use in some instances it's for the better, and some instances I would say it's for the worse. We had to catapult into having virtual court all of the time, and the Domestic Relations Branch has been fully virtual since about March 17th, 2020. And we are continuing to be almost completely virtual going forward. Sometimes we go into the courthouse to speak with children, if that's better. And I think in the future, there might be some room for large trials to go back in-house, but mainly the Domestic Relations Branch needs to stay remote to allow the courthouse to have a smaller footprint for criminal cases and civil jury trials. And so what that means is in some ways it's easier to be a pro bono attorney because you don't have to come over to court. You don't have to wait for your case to be called. You get a very specific time and you can do it from your office. And so I think it cuts down on a little bit of the time that's required for the pro bono attorneys. The flip side of that is because everybody has a dedicated time, we can't see the cases as often, which makes it all the more important for people to be prepared at every hearing to, particularly in custody cases, at every hearing to bring the information necessary for the court to be understanding what the current best custodial arrangement is for the child, because otherwise it might be a number of months before it could be adjusted again in the future. I would always recommend practicing with the technology before calling in, because the court uses WebEx, and that's not commonly used in other locations. And the court prefers to have people dial in on video, but audio is certainly a possibility. And oftentimes that's necessary for folks who have limited technology needs. And then the court has also provided some remote locations where your potential pro bono clients could go if they need assistance with the technology. One of the things we are running into is sometimes people show up at the courthouse. So unless you are specifically told to go to the courthouse, you don't go there. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, but you have an amazing panel of legal service attorneys and experienced pro bono attorneys that I know that you're going to hear from. So really what I just want to make sure that I convey today is how important pro bono service in the local Washington community is to the individual litigants and to the court being able to move matters forward and toward the best resolution. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Thank you, Judge McLean, for sharing that with us. Excellent tips. Okay, so now we're going to move to introduce our representatives from the participating nonprofit organizations, Bread from the City, Kind, and Legal Aid. They are here today to give a brief overview of the different pro bono opportunities available within DC. But before we get started, I want to quickly express to everybody that you are more than welcome to use the chat box during the event for questions. We will happily entertain your questions and hope to make this a dialogue. Okay. We've asked our representatives to do a quick pitch for their programs, and we will be starting with Rebecca Lindhurst from Bread for the City. Rebecca.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a managing attorney at Bread for the City's Legal Clinic, and I manage our landlord, tenant, and community lawyering project practices. And Bread for the City's housing pro bono work looks a little different than other programs in that we do it in collaboration with other legal services organizations, including Legal Aid Society. And we try and train up teams of attorneys to really create a practice area within within the firm. So I'll tell you first that we work closely with Covington and Burling and Skadden as part of what we call the Right to Counsel project, and it provides guaranteed services to tenants in subsidized housing who are facing eviction. And so through that partnership with Legal Aid and Neighborhood Legal Services, the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, Legal Counsel for the Elderly, and Rising for Justice, alongside 14 firms who have signed up as part of the Right to Counsel project. We provide a close mentorship relationship with each of those law firms, split among the legal services organization. So in partnership with Covington and Burling and Skadden, we really have and loved working with them because they have created a practice group within the firm, meaning that there are a number of attorneys who have expressed interest in housing work, And those attorneys really are trained up and have started to become experts in landlord-tenant law. And that really affords them to take a case without much mentorship and create experts within the firm that they can go to. Some of the firms have created brief banks and other materials that help the attorneys get up to speed. So I really encourage firms to take a look at that model. It's worked really well. It's been on hold a little bit during the pandemic, but the firms are still taking cases from the legal services organization. And John will talk a little bit about what that looks like when he takes his turn.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, next we have Sylvia Solstice with Legal Aid Society, Family Domestic Issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvia Soltis, and I'm a senior staff attorney at Legal Aid in our pro bono program. I'm grateful to be with you today, sharing information on Legal Aid's pro bono program and having one of our pro bono superstars, Tiffany Chung from Baker Botts, on this panel, sharing her experience handling pro bono child custody cases. Legal Aid is DC's oldest and largest civil legal services organization. We were founded in 1932, and we like to say that for almost 90 years now, we've been making justice real in individual and systemic ways for persons living in poverty in the District of Columbia. We are primarily an in-house organization, with the vast majority of our work being individual casework, though we also do systemic advocacy. Our direct client representation is in 4 substantive practice areas: housing law, domestic violence, family law, public benefits law, and consumer law. We also have an appellate practice that handles appeals on a broad range of poverty law issues. Finally, we have several smaller cross-unit projects, such as our immigration project and our reentry justice project. All that's to say, we do a lot in-house. But our pro bono program allows us to significantly expand our impact by providing legal assistance and representation to hundreds of additional individuals and families in our community each year. And it's through our partnerships with attorneys just like you that we are able to help more people. On an average year, we refer about 250 matters to private practice and government attorneys. In each of those 4 practice areas that I mentioned earlier, cases are screened initially by Legal Aid and then referred to pro bono counsel. In addition to our manuals, recorded trainings, and sample documents, we pair our pro bono attorneys with an experienced legal aid attorney who serves as an expert mentor on the matter. That mentor is available as a resource to answer questions, provide sample pleadings, and discuss relevant law and strategy. Though, to be clear, that person is not co-counseling with a pro bono attorney. These pro bono cases that we refer out not only provide lawyers an opportunity to help an individual in need, but they also offer litigation and advocacy skills building opportunities, as I'm sure you'll hear from our panel. So I am hopeful that you'll be inspired by these great pro bono attorneys and reach out to learn how you too can help. Tiffany has done a fantastic job on the cases that she has handled, and I am hopeful that you'll consider taking a case. I'll throw my email address in the chat, so if you have any questions about our program or any of our different practice areas, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Now we have Hamida Uwosu from Kids in Need of Defense Kind. Hamida.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hamida. I'm a staff attorney at Kind. And just to give you a little bit of background, in 2008, Kind was founded by the Microsoft Corporation and UNHCR Special Envoy Angelina Jolie to address the gap in legal services for unaccompanied minors. Kind now has offices across the United States and in Mexico that provide children who come to the US without a parent or guardian with holistic care that includes legal assistance and social services. And through our strategic partnerships, we provide pro bono legal representation for refugees and migrant children across the country. And here in DC, we have field offices that serve both Virginia and DC residents. So our pro bono opportunities are available to work with children who are placed in deportation proceedings from ages 0 to 17 and a half years old. So if you're interested in taking on a case, you can request a special immigrant juvenile or an asylum case, and there may be children where both forms of relief are applied for. And it's such a unique opportunity to work with children who are both incredibly vulnerable due to the trauma they've survived, but also tremendously resilient and who really deserve safety in this country. And you will work hand in hand with your kind mentor. So they're not co-counsel similar to legal aid, but they will guide you every step of the way through your case. Will offer advice on strategy, answer your questions, review draft filings, conduct mock prep sessions when needed. It's truly white glove service. And practically, the work will encompass a variety of experiences depending on the type of case. For example, it might be state court, getting experience doing custody proceedings in DC Superior Court or in the Virginia juvenile courts, or immigration practice before the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services and the Arlington Immigration Court. So overall, each case might last around 4 to 5 years and longer for asylum cases. But don't be scared, the majority of work is done in the first 6 months or so, and then again towards the end of the case when you're hopefully applying for a green card. So it's something you can allocate in your schedule when weighing your billable or other matters. And you'll find that much of the case is about building rapport with the client, getting to know them and understand their story, given the relatively long wait times for adjudication at the agencies. So I will add, although you're going to hear from our really fantastic panelists, that I did personally make the switch to kind after about 3.5 years at a big law firm. And while I was at my firm as a white collar associate, I found pro bono work to be the most rewarding work of all the cases that I did. And if you do work with kind, and I hope you do, you'll see firsthand how you can empower a child and truly change their life through your legal representation. And I just see a quick question in the chat that I'm just going to respond to really fast, if that's okay. You are not required to be bilingual to assist. So even if you only speak English, come on down.
Thank you, Hamida, and thank you to all of our volunteers, Rebecca, Hamida, and Sylvia. Now we're going to move to our panelists to hear from them about their firsthand experiences working with these organizations. These pro bono attorneys all have experience doing pro bono work prior to and during the pandemic, and I believe it has truly shaped their experience. Now, again, we have prepared some questions for the panelists, but please do not hesitate to put your questions in the chat box. Now, we're going to start with introductions. Panelists, if you could please introduce yourselves by saying your name, your organization or firm, what you do on a regular basis for your legal practice, what type of pro bono case you have taken on. And since we've spent some time meeting in DC, your favorite DC takeout. We will start with Joanne Hawana.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be participating today in this panel and to be invited. My name is Joanne Hawana. I'm a member at the law firm Mintz, which is a Boston-based firm, but has an office here in DC, so I'm based here. My practice is, I'm a health lawyer, but specializing in food and drug law, so FDA-related matters, completely outside of the scope of, my pro bono experience. And we can certainly talk a little bit more about how different it is. In terms of favorite place to eat, so I have been remote at home in Maryland in the burbs since March 2020. I really haven't gone into the office because it's such a long commute. So I will say, Sandra, I miss all the salad places. So I miss Sweet Green in particular. That was pre-pandemic. I was getting that pretty regularly. So the big salads, I certainly miss out here in the burbs. Oh, I think what type of case I got. I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm doing a case with Kind, my Kind mentor, and it is a special immigrant juvenile case. It actually involves 4 siblings that came here all together as unaccompanied minors in 2016. So I have been working with them for several years now. As Hamida said, they do tend to be long cases, but with very long waits in between. And again, we can talk about those specifics, but it's been a great experience.
Thank you, Joanne. Next, we have Tiffany Chung.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Chung. I'm a second year associate at Baker Botts. On a day-to-day basis at Baker Botts, I'm actually an environmental attorney. So our clients tend to be electric companies, utility companies. I also deal with wildlife issues. So do a lot of work involving animals and endangered and threatened species, which is very different from the type of work that I do pro bono with legal aid, which is on child custody issues. So I have done, along with my partner mentor at Baker Botts and Derek Clark, we have done 2 child custody cases now. Both of those cases have involved instances of domestic violence. So the first case that we did, it was, we were representing a mother who was seeking sole custody of her child. And in the second case that we're working on, that we took on this past year, we are actually representing a mother who is being sued for sole custody. So we were trying to maintain joint custody for her. So it's been a really great experience. I really can't imagine, not doing pro bono work on top of the work that I do as an environmental lawyer. And in terms of my favorite takeout place in DC, it's been a while since I've relocated to New York recently. But I would say Wise Guy Pizza is definitely on the very top of my list, especially for those long nights at the office. So they're really good.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now we have John Zip.
Thank you, Sandra. Hi, everyone. My name is John Zip. I'm an associate at Covington and Burling here in DC. My normal practice group is commercial litigation. So it is somewhat similar to what I do, at least in the litigation sphere. Most of my pro bono work, or almost exclusively, has been in the housing right to counsel, so landlord tenant work. As Rebecca alluded to earlier, we have pretty much a practice group here at Covington and Burling that is exclusively devoted to working on landlord tenant and getting access and counsel to mainly tenants. My work has been, it's been an incredible opportunity. I've taken on probably a number of close to 10 or so housing cases so far at my tenure at Covington. And my work during COVID still, I still have a few tenants that I've been helping. It's been probably, as others have said, the most rewarding aspect of my career. And I think it's somewhere where you can make a really big impact and you can change the lives of people by simply just representing them honestly. And these are folks who really need people to advocate for them. And so we'll get into it, but it's been great. It's been rewarding. My favorite takeout, wow. I was gonna say Zetinia, but then Wise Guys Pizza reminded me of this place called Timber Pizza, which is a really, really cool pizza place that you should all at least give it a go now that you're back, even go in person.
Thank you, everybody, for those introductions, those great restaurant recommendations, and I can't wait to hear about your experiences. So we will now move to our questions. So just to start off, these questions are not directed to anybody in particular, whoever would like to answer, or if you want to go in that same order that we just did introductions, we can do either. First question, what inspired you to take a pro bono case? Who would like to answer?
Well, I'm happy to go first. So as I said, I'm a food and drug lawyer. Tiffany sort of alluded to it with her practice. We represent companies for the most part, occasionally individual, entrepreneurs trying to get products to market, but most of the time it's entities. And it's, yes, people are grateful, but you don't get that same, satisfaction from really helping somebody through a life-altering process, or, again, changing their lives for the better, as John said. So for a long time, I was, especially being a junior associate, I think I had kids, when I was a third, fourth, fifth year, I think I was definitely reticent to take direct representation cases. So most of what I did in my pro bono practice when I was more junior was, helping legal services organizations that were clients, work on amicus briefs or, helping with research and advocacy positions, white papers, things like that, not the direct representation that we're talking about here today. And for me, when Donald Trump was elected, and I'll be totally frank with this group, I think everything changed. I think those of us, we all knew, systemic racism and all of those things, sexism, all of that existed. But I think for me and for a bunch of my colleagues, because we went into this case together, since there's 4 clients, it really was that election just took it to another level and made it so much more urgent that we somehow contribute to improving the system, or that it didn't feel right to just be in the background anymore and just do legal research when needed. So we decided to do the KIND training. MINS has a long relationship with KIND, so attorneys in all of our offices have taken on KIND cases. There's always people to sort of talk about their experiences with, to help you, hey, what was your first master calendar hearing like? Let me learn from you. So KIND always, sort of uses our offices for trainings and things like that. So it's very easy to say, oh, we're going to do this training that KIND's, doing in our office next week. And that's what really ended up happening. Post the 2016 election, there was a KIND training in our office. A bunch of us decided to go attend the training. And then once you're trained, they will send around a list of open cases, clients that need representation. And there was one that said, 4 sisters who recently arrived unaccompanied from El Salvador, and me and 2 of my colleagues decided we would represent them together. So we sort of grouped together to take on these 4 clients, again, just being a little more than a single individual client. And of course, KIND was totally supportive of that. The funny thing, of course, is that in the 5 years since we first started this case, my 2 colleagues have since gone in-house and are no longer with MINS. So now it's sort of mostly on me, but a lot of the hard work was done when they were still here. And again, we can talk a little about the process of an SIJS case and sort of how it ebbs and flows. So for me, it really was just saying I need to do something that's more impactful for an individual, because we knew the immigration system was broken before. And I think with the election, of the previous president, it was obvious that it was going to get worse. And that's what prompted me to really change my approach to pro bono and to take this kind of direct representation case.
Thank you, Joanne. And I think a lot of us can relate to those reasons. Thank you. Tiffany, can we hear from you?
Sure. So I took on my first pro bono case 2 months after I started at the firm. So looking back, I think I kind of didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I just signed up for it right away. I had taken family law during my last semester of law school, and I saw that Legal Aid had a case that came up involving child custody. So I had a little bit of background going in, obviously nothing in practice, but I had some idea of sort of what it might entail. I think I was very lucky in the sense that the partner that I work with at Baker Botts is very hands-on. So she attends every client call with me. We prepare for every client call together. The case that I did ended up going to trial by the end of my first year, and obviously I had never done any trial work, so I really needed someone that could, allow me to, speak in court and to take the entire case during trial, but someone who would provide me the support and training so that I would be confident doing that. And so I was really lucky that I had a partner that did that. Legal Aid also provides you a mentor. So we definitely rely on her a lot in terms of, how does a trial go for child custody cases? What do you need to file? And I think because I had that type of support, I was really comfortable the entire way through as we were representing the client. So for me, I definitely have no regrets, and it's just been so rewarding, and which was why, we ended up taking on another case. So, for junior associates that are interested, I definitely, recommend that you go ahead and take the case, but, making sure that you have, you have the type of support you need.
Thank you. I love that encouragement. Thank you, Tiffany. John.
So I think what inspired me to start, I knew what I wanted to do. At least let me start. In law school, I was in a civil advocacy clinic, and we were told to spend an hour either in the small claims court or landlord tenant. And so I picked landlord tenant, and you don't have to spend an hour there to realize the immense disparity and honestly just how heartbreaking it is. It's all you have to do is spend 5 minutes. And I think I spent the afternoon there listening to these people, mainly single mothers with 3 or 4 or 5 kids, who are put in a situation where they have no alternative, or they think they have no alternative. And they're left with thousands and thousands of dollars in unpaid rent for conditions that, you know, nobody would want to live in, where there's rats and cockroaches and mold, and it's absolutely terrible. And they have no one advocating for them. And on the other side is a landlord who has counsel, and it's just it's heartbreaking. And so I came into Covington knowing that that's what I wanted to do. I joke that I think I got a pro bono case before I even started billable work, but I'm sure it's probably the same day. And since that time, it's been remarkable. And I think, look, the support that we've had is incredible. But I think, at least in the housing right to counsel group and landlord tenant, it's a great opportunity for you to get stand-up experience. It's a great opportunity for you to learn how to advocate for clients who oftentimes don't know what they want and what their options are. And it allows you to be creative and to think of solutions that are not, you know, always black and white. And I can guarantee you there is always an option for them, and it is not to have to leave their home. It's rarely the solution, if at all. And most of the time, you can reduce the amount of money that they have to pay, and even you can get a landlord to pay them, which has been, you know, is great, and has been, you know, a lot of fun. And you know, you make a difference, an actual difference in somebody's life. So I would do it over and over again if I could, and I wouldn't tell everybody here, but I would spend 100% of my time doing this. I think it's been incredible. So.
It is incredible, and you all make such a big difference in your clients' lives. Now, you've all sort of touched on this topic, but I would love to hear more about how your mentoring organization gives you support, how you feel supported, how you get the trainings, the information you need. We can go back around. We'll start with Joanne.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there is pretty much no way we could be successful in our kind cases without the mentorship and the support that we get from the organization. I mean, it's huge. So I guess from the beginning, of course, there's training on the substantive area of law. And then when you get assigned a case, they send you all kinds of manuals for, in my case, my clients are in Virginia, so we have to file, you know, the domestic case, and I don't want to get too much into the substance, but in order to file a special immigrant juvenile petition with USCIS, you actually have to have a state, it's called a predicate order. So it can be a custody order, a domestic violence. It doesn't really matter as long as something is coming out of state court that can then be used, and all the factual findings are in that predicate order that can then be used for your immigration petition. So in our situation, our clients were in Virginia. We had to file the custody order request in Virginia. And Kind provided all kinds of manuals for, filing a custody case in Virginia. These are the steps, here's the substantive law you need to be aware of. Here's how to prepare your motion and your affidavits and all of that. This is incredibly valuable. The other thing I would say in our case, we sort of got thrown a curveball. So we took on these clients in January 2017. And right within a couple months of that, the Virginia Supreme Court, and I'm sure the Kind attorneys listening to this case are probably having like scary flashbacks, but the Virginia Supreme Court issued a ruling that almost like gutted the possibility of SIJS within the state of Virginia. And the the Kind lawyers scrambled to figure out an alternative strategy. Now that this Supreme Court ruling has completely altered our normal strategy for getting predicate orders in Virginia courts. What do we do now? What do we do next? So they analyzed that court decision for us. They sort of figured out a viable strategy for continuing to do SIJS cases in Virginia. And they communicated all of that to us, in real time with examples, and for our case, because it started right then, we had a very skeptical, domestic court judge who didn't know, what she needed to do to respond to the Supreme Court ruling and felt like she no longer had authority to do certain things. So we had to go, we were in state court multiple times. I want to say 3 or 4 times to try to walk her through that, to give her more evidence. And the Kind mentorship was really key to getting through that process successfully. Because every time, she threw a new question at us, we were consulting with our Kind mentor on, how do we respond? What is she really getting at here? Because they are the experts in the process and the substantive area of law, as the judge said. We're not. Maybe John definitely is on housing, but I'm definitely not an immigration lawyer. And so that was just amazing, and made it so we were able to get that predicate order, able to get them successfully their SIJS petitions. And then we just recently were able to file for their adjustment of status, which is their green card application. And in that, our mentor was amazing too. She reviewed all our forms, all our applications, made sure we weren't misinterpreting any of the questions. There's a ton of questions on those forms. So that was also just incredibly helpful to make sure we were confident in our filings, because the clients only get one chance with the green card process. So she reviewed everything and walked us through and made sure we didn't make any mistakes. So very helpful.
Joanne, that case that you're referring to from 2017, that is Canales, and it was just a nightmare for so many immigration lawyers. Brings back terrible memories, but I am so glad you were able to face all of those challenges, and it sounds like you are at a very exciting stage of the case now for your clients. Congratulations. Now we'll hear from Tiffany.
Yeah, I'll keep my response pretty brief. So we had a wonderful legal aid mentor. We primarily would rely on her and ask her questions, especially when it came time to filing things, or when we were trying to decide on which strategy to use. That was when we would call her. In terms of filing things, she always had templates and examples for us, so it just made it very easy. And when we first started on the case, legal aid provides you a manual, so I kind of treat it like a Bible, because it has everything you need to know in it, including the legal standards, what's the best case law to cite, what you should do, what the deadlines are. So it just made the process a lot easier, and just having that mentor has been very helpful.
Thank you so much. John, can we hear from you?
As Rebecca alluded to earlier, I think the success of the Housing Right to Counsel program is because of what Brett for the city has done and what Rebecca has done. I mean, it's been, I remember when I first started, I think I had a question once a day, if not twice a day. And the support is just immense, with, as Joanne hinted at, sample briefings and answers and templates for settlement agreements and the like. Those, I still use those. I think that binder right behind me actually is my Housing Right to Counsel binder from Brett. And it's also just, it's very helpful to strategize with somebody and with a group of lawyers who this is what they do. And you have a mentor at Covington as well, but having a mentor there, it just enables you and makes you feel more confident in the decisions that you're making. Because this is, as everybody said, this is somebody's life. And whatever pro bono practice you're doing, whatever case it is, this is still somebody's life. And, you know, while you're given wide latitude in handling it, and it's awesome for your own career and your experience, it helps to have somebody that you can touch base with and talk through the decisions that you're anticipating, that you're mulling over. So it's been incredible.
Thank you all for sharing that. Checking the chat box. Don't see any questions yet, but let's move on to the next question. How do you all find time to work on your pro bono cases and meet the demands of your billable work, your day-to-day job? Anne.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. I mean, I don't think anybody would necessarily sugarcoat that. I think, you know, ultimately, the pro bono clients are your clients too, and the obligations that we have to them are the same as we have to our, you know, corporate billing clients. But at the same time, realistically, at least like for my case, for example, that had long, you know, waits and no real firm deadlines. For example, the custody case, we want to file it as soon as possible. We want to get their SIJS granted as soon as possible. But none of my clients were getting close to being 17 and a half. You know, we did have time, you know, and so it is challenging when you have billable clients, you know, or senior attorneys sort of breathing on you for deadlines, but your pro bono clients are not, right? And so it is very self-directed. It is very, like, it's incumbent on us to make sure that those pro bono client needs are being met, and that we're, you know, being ethical in our dealings with them, just as we are with our other clients. So, I mean, again, I would say I did a lot on the weekends for my pro bono clients, because that's the best time I would have where I would be uninterrupted. And I think, you know, again, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And there were times where I was like, if I'm in court in Virginia, I'm not available today. And if someone's going to ask, well, I'm dealing with a client matter. And I just try to always put it in those terms, because again, to me, the client responsibilities are equal, whether they're billing or pro bono. And I always tried to convey that when people were like, well, why are you out of the office today? Because I'm with a client all day, you know, and you just sort of make it happen because you have to. Hope that's not too cynical of a response, Sandra, but that was my experience.
Thank you so much. Tiffany.
So as you know, Joanne said, you know, once you take on a case like that is your responsibility. And you represent your client, you just make it happen. When there are other deadlines coming, it just needs to be done. So at Baker Botts, we allocate 200 hours, which you can use for pro bono, and they also count as billable hours. So that has been really helpful. During the first year, when I took on that first case, it did end up going to trial. And so, you know, I think I spent over 300 hours that year on this pro bono matter because there was so much trial prep to do. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is someone that you talk with this is a client that you'll probably be much closer to, especially for junior associate than corporate clients, because a lot of times as a junior associate, you're not really put on client calls. And so this is someone you'll get to know, and you'll want to help and make sure that you represent them to the best of your ability. You know, as with any case, there are ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's slower, sometimes there are more deadlines. With both of our custody cases, we always have status hearings that come up every couple months. So I think that really helps us, that really keeps us on track of making sure we're communicating with the client, we're checking in on the client, and we're prepared for that status hearing. So that kind of helps as well. But in terms of, you know, when there are deadlines, that's, you know, we'll prioritize the pro bono case when there aren't deadlines, and that's on the back burner for a little bit. But Baker Botts is just really good with recognizing the impact that pro bono work has, and so they're generally very supportive of it.
Great to hear. Thank you, Tiffany. And John.
I echo everything that Tiffany and Joanne has said, so I don't want to, belabor it. But yes, it is challenging. It is. It takes your time, but at least at Covington, and it sounds like I'm sure most firms are like this. This is a very important aspect of your legal career, and something that they encourage you to spend a lot of time on and to help people. I think the one thing I would say is somewhat of a tangent from this, but I would caution people not to wait to take pro bono, not to say, okay, let me make sure I have more time on my plate to do this, because you're never going to, right? It's never going to be a situation where you have, wow, I have all this free time, now I can do pro bono. That's not how it works. And, maybe there'll be a lull, but you shouldn't wait until that. If there's something that you want to do, a case that you want to work on, we're good at, handling many things and juggling. That's why we're in this practice, right? That's why we're lawyers. And so I don't think you should wait to do something just because you have other stuff on your plate. I think you'll make the time, and it's while that, yes, they're both clients, right? Billable and pro bono. I find that when I'm working on my pro bono case, it's even if it's more hours, it's more rewarding. And so it's not as onerous on you. It's not as exhausting. It's you're energized from it. So, to the extent that your billable hours are crushing you, add something else onto it that will make you feel good about what you're doing. Not that billable might not. Maybe you love everything you do, but I can assure you this will absolutely make you feel good. So.
Thank you. Excellent advice. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. Okay. Now, if you did pro bono prior to the pandemic, how have you seen your pro bono practice change? How have you adapted to continue working on your case during this virtual world? Joanne, I'll start.
Yeah, so my case has been going on since, as I said, 2017. So pre-pandemic, we met with our clients in person all the time. So we would drive to Herndon to meet them where they live, and once or twice they came to our office in DC when we needed to have documents notarized and that sort of thing. But it was always in person, which I think makes sense pre-pandemic. Of course, we did phone calls and things like that. But now, especially with the younger clients not vaccinated because they're under 12, we really haven't gotten together in person. And actually, all of last year, we didn't have any activity. It wasn't until 2021 that their priority date became current and they were eligible to have their green card applications filed. So that's when we got back into meeting with them, and we had to go over that whole process. And as I mentioned, all the questions, sort of go through all the questions with them and get the information we needed to file those, or at this point that I needed to file those, since I'm sort of partnerless these days on this matter. But for that, all of that we did remotely. So what changed in the interim is that pre-pandemic, I don't even think any of them had an email address. I remember asking once if I could email something, and they were like, no, we don't have an email address. Post-pandemic or during pandemic, last year, school was all remote. I don't know exactly where they got laptops to do school, but I know they all did remote elementary and middle and high school. And because of that, they were way more comfortable with those technological interactions. So we actually did all our meetings for the green card application on Zoom. And I actually think they liked that because they were much more relaxed. They were in their home. They were all like sitting together. Whereas, I think sometimes when we would meet, at the library or in our office, it was a little more awkward. So I think it worked out fine just in terms of being able to transition to a virtual meeting format. And other than that, I really haven't had, I haven't had any court hearings since the pandemic started. I haven't filed any motions yet. So I don't have experiences on that front, Sandra, but in terms of the relationship with the clients, it has changed a bit. And I think, there's obviously pros and cons with being in a virtual world, but so far so good, just in terms of being able to collect information and continue moving their case forward.
We've all seen kids are so adaptable. It's marvelous.
Yeah.
Tiffany, thank you, Jordan.
So when I started on my first child custody case, it was still pre-COVID. So that was all done in person. We met with the client in person. Status hearings were all in person, and then COVID started, and we ended up doing a virtual trial. And in some ways, I think with COVID, it has actually made it less burdensome for for the client. Not having to come into the office to meet with them. Everything is scheduled remotely. Obviously, there are things that are challenging with both of our pro bono clients. They don't have an iPad or a computer, so that has definitely made it challenging when we want to do a video conference with them, or when there are status hearings or even at trial, having them appear on video. When we did do our virtual trial, we set up the office so that the client was in one room and the attorneys and supporting staff were in another room. So the trial could be held virtually, but we were socially distanced, and that was how it was done. With our current pro bono case, we started that after COVID, so we have yet to meet the client, but we've spoken with her a number of times. This past year, we've appeared in multiple status hearings, all virtual. So it's, I don't think it has changed that much for us. It's just, I think, been a little harder to get to know our client a little better faster. I think there's a lot that comes across in body language that I think doesn't really come across in a phone conversation. So that has been a little bit of a learning curve, but otherwise, it just really hasn't changed for us that much.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I do see a question in the chat. Says, what mechanisms do you use to exchange documents with the client when representation is virtual?
Absolutely. By email, for sure. And when it comes to signing documents, there is a wonderful free app called Cam Scanner, available on any Android or iPhone. I sound like an ad right now, but it's a great app. And it's great. You can, take a picture on your phone and it has a scanner-like quality. So you can email it back and forth, and that has been what we've been using if we need any documents signed. In terms of notarizing documents, our firm provides virtual notary services, so we just connect them with that person, they get it done. So that has been really helpful. There are times when we do need a physical copy, and it's really hard to coordinate that. Most of the time, I would just handle that because it's just too hard right now.
Thank you, Tiffany. John.
Would you like me to answer that question, or should I answer it? Both?
Yeah, both the original question, and if you also have anything about the mechanisms that you use, that would be great.
Sure. My work, it's changed a little bit during COVID. As I'm sure everybody's aware, there's an eviction moratorium, or there was an eviction moratorium, and so it's been great for tenants who are struggling, and at least they stay in their homes during that period, which, though this is for everybody listening, it's going to get really bad in the next couple of months now that moratorium's ended. So would be an incredible time now to start joining up and helping out, because landlords are going to be filing eviction lawsuits rampant. So my work really hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, other than still advising clients as I normally would during COVID, but with the notion and knowing that they're not going to be evicted as soon, but to still send the same recommendations of saving money just in case when this ends, what will happen. In terms of mechanisms to exchange documents, I agree with Tiffany. Most of it's been email. There's several great apps. And I think also in certain instances, you can send hard copy documents to your client. And if you need documents back, I've always included a already self-stamped envelope so that they don't have to worry about doing anything other than putting the signed documents in there, or other requested documents, they can put it in that envelope and mail it out. They just drop it off at a post office. So that's helped. And then there's some back work here where they scan it and send it, but that's really been the way.
Thank you so much. Now, I know we are super close on time, and so I think I'm going to jump to the one question. As a closing remarks, anything that you want to add, put in a plug for the type of pro bono work that you do, that would be great. And that is, what would you tell someone who is not only new to their law firm job, but who is thinking about taking on a pro bono case? Joanne.
I would say, I think like John said, go for it. Don't wait till you're more senior, which is what I did. And I think I wish I had done this a lot sooner in my career and gotten these kinds of experiences, and the good feeling that comes from helping somebody through a really difficult period in their life, and hopefully also, moving towards some sort of systemic change here, right? So I would say, don't put it off. Your firms all support it. It is, firms bear this kind of work with a badge of honor. It's important to the working of our justice system as a whole. And, your firm will support you, even if it feels a little daunting when you are juggling billables and, other matters. But it's very much appreciated, and you'll never get more appreciation than what you'll get from your pro bono client, because they really, really, really understand that how much better their outcome is from being represented versus not being represented. And I just don't think, corporate deals or, companies making money is great, and they'll say thank you, but it won't be that same level of appreciation that you'll get from your pro bono clients. So I highly encourage you to participate.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Tiffany.
I completely agree, Joanne. Take it on. Even if you're new and you just started at the firm, it's exactly what I did. I think for me, looking back now in these past 2 years, it's really given me a lot of experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to get. I've learned a lot on how to communicate with the client. I learned a lot how to manage a case, how to do witness examinations at trial, do opening, closing statements. I don't think that's something I would, I could have gotten until much, much later in my career. And even then, it's so rare that cases go to trial nowadays. With the second pro bono case I did, we ended up selling. So that was also a new experience that I got. It is a lot of work, but it definitely, I think, I've just been able to do so much more. And that's really translated into the billable work that I've done. Things, cases that are going to trial, at least I have some idea of, how they're very different subject matters, but, in terms of how the process works, what needs to be done, it's just been a really wonderful experience.
Thank you, Tiffany. John.
I know we're over time now, and I've said a lot about this already, but I'll end with that. There is no better time than the present. And the second you start, the moment you start representing somebody, you make an impact. So I can't stress it enough that the second you begin helping somebody and decide to take on the matter, you've now pushed into a positive direction for them. And I see no reason why, if you have the ability to advocate for somebody who needs help, why delay? So that's my spiel. I think it's great. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Joanne and Tiffany. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Judge McLean for joining us, sharing your wonderful experiences, your advice, sharing your lunch hour with us. It has been wonderful to meet you all. I really want to encourage everybody out there to reach out to these organizations, look into taking on a pro bono case. You will be making such a wonderful difference, touching people's lives in a very, very big way. It's so rewarding, and just big thank you to everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.